As we know, January has always been Hollywood's dumping ground, the place where studios send movies to quietly disappear. And in 1996 and 1997, they sent 13 of them, losing somewhere between $250 and $310 million in today's money. I've got Eddie Murphy collecting a $30 million paycheck for a film he openly didn't care about. I've got the Fish Called Wanda reunion that John Cleese called one of the biggest mistakes of his career. And I've got a Pauly Shore comedy so bad it scored a 1 out of 100 on Metacritic, but somehow launched Tenacious D. Which disaster hurt the most? Let's find out. The original Lawnmower Man made $32 million on a $10 million budget back in 1992. So New Line Cinema figured a sequel was easy money. They were wrong. Lawnmower Man 2, Beyond Cyberspace, cost $15 million and made $2.4 million. That's a recovery rate of 16%. It opened at number 19. Here's where it gets messy though. Jeff Fahey, who played the original Job, gone. Pierce Brosnan, busy making GoldenEye. The original director Brett Leonard, working on Virtuosity. So they brought in Matt Frewer, Max Headroom himself, and a TV director named Farhad Mann. And then, according to reports, Mann got locked out of his own editing room during post-production. The guy who wrote the original script, Dan O'Bannon, the same guy who wrote Alien, didn't even know the sequel existed until his agent called him after it came out. That's how little anyone cared. Brett Leonard later said the sequel destroyed the franchise. He's not wrong. The film currently sits on IMDb's bottom 100 list. It's not even entertainingly bad, it's just boring. And boring is the one thing a sci-fi sequel about killer virtual reality can't afford to be. This next one's actually kind of sad. Big Bully starred Rick Moranis and Tom Arnold as childhood rivals reuniting as adults. Warner Brothers spent $15 million on it. It made $2 million. And it holds a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not low, 0. One of the rare films to achieve that. Tom Arnold won the Razzie for Worst Actor that year, tied with Pauly Shore. But here's the thing most people don't know. Big Bully was Rick Moranis' last major theatrical film. After this, he essentially vanished from Hollywood for 24 years. The reason? His wife Anne had passed from cancer in 1991, leaving him to raise 2 young kids alone. By 1997, Moranis was done. He later told USA Today he found that it was too difficult to manage raising my kids and doing the traveling involved in making movies. Apple TV's bio on him notes he'd become disenchanted with the material he was receiving, specifically citing Big Bully as an example. There's something almost poetic about it. A movie about confronting your childhood bully became the movie that seemingly bullied Rick Moranis out of Hollywood. He didn't return to live action until a Ryan Reynolds Mint Mobile commercial in 2020, and he's currently filming Spaceballs 2. But for almost a quarter century, this was his goodbye. Peter Weller, RoboCop himself, starred in Screamers, a Philip K. Dick adaptation about self-replicating killer robots on a distant planet. The budget was somewhere between $14 and $20 million depending on who you ask. It made about $7 million worldwide. By any measure, that's a flop. It opened on 1,560 screens. But here's where it gets interesting. The screenplay was written by Dan O'Bannon back in 1981, the same year he finished writing Total Recall. It sat in development purgatory for over a decade, and when it finally got made, O'Bannon didn't even know about it until after the fact. Again, the man wrote 2 of the most influential sci-fi scripts of the era and kept finding out his movies existed through phone calls from his agent. Critics were mixed, 29% on Rotten Tomatoes, but audiences who actually saw it tend to love it. Peter Weller has called it a terrific movie and said he had one of the most fantastic times making it. Scholar Jason P. Vest wrote that Screamers is more faithful than most other adaptations of Philip K. Dick's work. Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars and compared its paranoid atmosphere to Blade Runner. The ending, with that teddy bear, is genuinely creepy. This one deserves the kind of reevaluation that Event Horizon eventually got. It's out there. People just need to find it. Sally Field starred in Eye for an Eye as a mother seeking revenge after her daughter is harmed by a repeat offender, played by Kiefer Sutherland. The director was John Schlesinger, the guy who made Midnight Cowboy and Marathon Man. The budget was $20 million. It made $26.9 million, opening at number 3. Technically, not a flop. but critics absolutely eviscerated it. Rotten Tomatoes, 7%. Roger Ebert gave it 1 star and called it a particularly nasty little example of audience manipulation. He compared it unfavorably to Dead Man Walking, saying that film challenges us to deal with a wide range of ethical and moral issues, while eye for an eye cynically blinkers us. But here's the twist. Audiences gave it an A- on CinemaScore. That's excellent. The gap between 7% critics and A- audiences is one of the widest I've ever seen. People wanted this movie. Critics just hated what it represented. And nearly 29 years later, the film became a global Netflix hit in early 2025. It pulled 4.4 million views and ranked number 8 on Netflix's global top 10. Sometimes the audience wins in the end. Jason Alexander and Faye Dunaway starred in Dunston Checks In, a family comedy about an orangutan loose in a luxury hotel. The budget was somewhere between $16 and $20 million. It made $9.9 million in theaters. That's a clear loss. The original title was Prime Mates. But wait. On home video, it made $41.6 million. That's more than 4 times its theatrical gross. This is one of those rare cases where a theatrical flop became a genuine home video success. Every kid in 1996 rented this thing. The orangutan who played Dunston was named Sam. He had a pay-or-play deal before production even started, meaning he got paid regardless of whether the movie got made. The director joked that directing an orangutan was a natural sequel after working with Gary Shandling. Faye Dunaway apparently talked to Ivana Trump for inspiration on playing the wealthy hotel owner. Sam retired to a sanctuary in 2004 after becoming too strong to handle safely. He passed peacefully in 2010. One strange detail from set. He passionately hated bare feet. Anyone wearing sandals or flip-flops would get chased and spat at. The movie's not great, but it found its audience eventually, just not in theaters. And then there's Biodome. Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin as slackers accidentally sealed inside an environmental research dome. Budget, $8.5 million plus $10 million in marketing. Total gross, $13.4 million. On paper, that's almost break-even. In reality, it's one of the most notorious flops of the decade. MGM distributed it. Rotten Tomatoes, 4%. Metacritic, 1 out of 100. That's not a typo. 1 out of 100. Only about 10 films in history have ever scored that low. Shore won the Razzie for Worst Actor. He later won Worst New Star of the Decade at the 2000 ceremony. His movie career was essentially over. Stephen Baldwin's career, according to multiple reports, permanently stagnated after this. He later said it was God's will after becoming born again. But here's the thing. Baldwin also said he gets recognized more for Biodome than any other film he's ever made. And he wasn't joking. But the real buried treasure here, Jack Black and Kyle Gass appear in Biodome as Tenacious D. It's their first on-screen appearance together. The comedy rock duo that would later become a cult phenomenon got their start in one of the worst reviewed films ever made. Kylie Minogue has a cameo too. Reportedly, it's the only thing she's ever done that her father ridicules her for. Shore and Baldwin have both said they want to make Biodome 2. As recently as 2021, they were still talking about it. Some disasters never truly end. Charlie Sheen starred in Shadow Conspiracy, a political thriller about a presidential aide uncovering an assassination plot. The budget was somewhere between $37 and $45 million. It made $2.3 million total. That's one of the worst wide-release performances in modern history. Donald Sutherland and Linda Hamilton co-starred. The film opened against the Star Wars Special Edition re-release. It dropped 72% in its second weekend. Rotten Tomatoes, 7%. Roger Ebert said it seems destined for mercy killing in the video stores, but the best review came from Sheen himself. According to IMDb, he described the film as a piece of Sacht. When your lead actor is openly trashing the movie, you know something went wrong. The studio behind it, Synergy Pictures, never recovered. After Shadow Conspiracy's failure, they sold their library to Disney and shut down film production entirely. One movie tanked an entire company. That's impressive in the worst possible way. Nobody remembers this film. It has zero cult following. It just exists as a cautionary tale about counter-programming against Star Wars. Rodney Dangerfield played a tabloid talk show host in Meet Wally Sparks. It made $4 million, and it's basically a time capsule of 1990s trash TV culture. Dangerfield co-wrote the screenplay with Harry Basil. The cameo list is insane. Jerry Springer, Sally Jesse Raphael, Geraldo Rivera, Roseanne, Tim Allen, Jay Leno, Bob Saget, Ron Jeremy. It's like someone raided every green room in Hollywood. Here's the context that matters. Dangerfield mentored a lot of these people. Jim Carrey, Sam Kinison, Roseanne, Tim Allen. They all came up through his comedy club, so this movie is essentially a reunion of everyone he helped launch. But the film itself didn't work. Critics called it rudderless. Variety said it squanders a choice opportunity for satire. It was Dangerfield's last starring theatrical role. He kept working. Natural-born killers, a few voice roles, but never headlined another movie. Small cult following among die-hard Dangerfield fans. For everyone else, it's just a weird snapshot of what passed for entertainment in 1997. Kevin Spacey's directorial debut featured Matt Dillon, Gary Sinise, Faye Dunaway, Viggo Mortensen, and Joe Mantegna. The budget was $6 million. Miramax paid another $5 million just for distribution rights. Total gross, $339,379. That's a recovery rate of about 5.6%. It opened in just 12 theaters. For context, Spacey had just won the Oscar for The Usual Suspects. He consulted with Sidney Lumet during production. Bryan Singer advised him on set. This should have been a prestige launch for his directing career. Instead, it opened in 12 theaters and disappeared. Critics gave it 50%, not terrible, but not good enough to save it. Roger Ebert said Spacey does what can be done with the material, but it never achieves takeoff velocity. One weird detail, the entire film takes place in a New Orleans basement bar, but basements basically don't exist in New Orleans because the city is at sea level. The setting is geographically impossible. The 2021 Blu-ray release removed Spacey's name from the cover following the allegations against him. The film is now mostly remembered as a curiosity, notable for its cast before they became huge, not for anything it actually accomplished. Ray Liotta and Lauren Holly starred in Turbulence, a $55 million airplane thriller that made $11.5 million. The failure was so catastrophic that Reiser Entertainment shut down their entire film division afterward. It was their biggest financial disaster ever. Roger Ebert gave it 1 star and wrote, "Turbulence thrashes about like a formula action picture that has stepped on a live wire. It's dead, but doesn't stop moving." The Bomb Report noted that director Robert Butler, a 70-year-old TV veteran, seemed incapable of controlling Liotta's performance, which ranged from over-the-top to scenery chewing to prop chewing. Here's the absurd part. It's a Christmas movie, set during the holidays, released on January 10th, 5 weeks too late. Someone at the studio made that decision and kept their job. Lauren Holly got a Razzie nomination for Worst Actress. The film spawned 2 direct-to-video sequels that nobody asked for, but somehow Turbulence has developed a small cult following as a so-bad-it's-good watch. Liotta's unhinged performance has become the main attraction. He passed in 2022, and this remains one of his strangest credits. Peter Hyams directed The Relic, a creature feature set in Chicago's Field Museum. The budget was somewhere between $40 and $60 million. Sources disagree wildly. It made $48 million worldwide. That's borderline. Probably broke even at the lower budget estimate. Lost money at the higher one. It did open at number 1. The creature came from Stan Winston's studio. 15 feet long, 5 to 6 feet tall, part lion, part alligator, part horse. Winston said it had to be enormous in order to rip people's heads off and eat their brains, which I thought was a wonderful character element. Here's what went wrong. The American Museum of Natural History refused to let them film there. Paramount offered a 7-figure sum, but the museum was worried that the monster movie would scare kids away. So they relocated to Chicago. Then VFX delays pushed the release from summer 1996 to January 1997, right into the dumping ground. Worst timing, it opened just 3 weeks after Scream revolutionized horror. Suddenly, irony-free creature features felt outdated. Tom Sizemore caught the flu twice because most of the shoot kept him either damp, cold, or soaking wet. Gene Siskel gave it 3 out of 4 stars. Ebert gave it 2.5. Both Chicago critics defended their city's museum monster movie. This one deserves better. It belongs alongside Deep Rising, Mimic, and Lake Placid in the 90s Creature Feature Hall of Fame. Eddie Murphy made Metro for $55 million. He personally took home $30 million of that. The film grossed $74.4 million worldwide. Sounds okay, right? Except after marketing and theater splits, it needed somewhere between $110 and $137 million to break even. It wasn't even close. Michael Rappaport co-starred. His co-star Carmen Ejogo later revealed Murphy's attitude toward the project. She said he'd been told, "There's this script. It's a bit sh*t. Are you interested?" "No, not really." "Well, you know, we're going to give you $30 million to do it." "Yeah, all right then," she added. He's just showing up and getting paid. Michael Rappaport, who co-starred, called the movie whack on his podcast. The director later said his biggest mistake was making it R-rated, which limited the audience. Critics gave it 17%. Audiences gave it a B+ cinema score. Murphy was still a draw, just not enough of one to justify that salary. This was the moment Hollywood started to question whether Murphy could still open a film. He pivoted to family comedies after this. Dr. Dolittle came next. The Nutty Professor sequel. He wouldn't have another truly acclaimed performance until Dolomite Is My Name in 2019. The entire cast of A Fish Called Wanda reunited for Fierce Creatures. John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, Michael Palin. The original Wanda made $188.5 million on a $7.5 million budget. Lightning in a Bottle. Cleese started writing this in 1992. Fierce Creatures cost $27 million, including $7 million in reshoots, and made $9.25 million domestic. That's a disaster. Here's what happened. Test audiences hated the original ending, so they reshot 52 pages over 5 weeks. The original director was replaced. William Goldman was brought in to write a new ending. The replacement director, Fred Schapisi, wanted to cut the entire first 15 minutes. He was overruled. He later said that decision killed the movie. Michael Palin's diary from the time describes the final cut as stripped of all pretensions, but notes that he felt quite sidelined, stuck amongst the keepers. Kevin Kline told Palin that Cleese is at his best when creating awful people, like Basil Fawlty or Otto from Wanda, and least convincing when trying to write warm, friendly, decent ones. When Cleese was asked in 2008 what he would do differently in his career, he gave a legendary answer. "I wouldn't have married Alice Faye Eichelberger, and I wouldn't have made Fierce Creatures." That's a man putting his movie alongside his divorce as a life regret. Lightning doesn't strike twice. Sometimes it doesn't even strike once. 13 films, 2 Januaries, somewhere between $250 and $350 million in losses adjusted for inflation. Careers ended, studios shut down, and a few films found second lives decades later on streaming or home video. January has always been where Hollywood sends movies to disappear. That hasn't changed. The only difference now is the budgets are bigger and the losses are larger. But the pattern stays the same. Studios know by December which films they've given up on. And those films all end up in the same place. If a movie you're excited about gets moved to January, start worrying. History says you probably should.